You hear the ooze from the crowd, and that will end the third quarter. The Sixers, no field goals for nearly 6 minutes, the last 6 minutes of the period. Fourth quarter set to begin in Game 7. 3 teams are already in the conference final. Of course, San Antonio and LA in the West. Milwaukee earlier today advanced to the East. And now it's up to Toronto and Philadelphia with 1 quarter to play and a 3-point lead for the Sixers.
Well, Mike, the reason the 76ers have the lead, you talked about 5:48, no field goals. The free throw line is the difference. They got 9 of their 19 points from the foul line. And you see the disparity, plus 9 at the free throw line. That's why they are winning this game. And Vince Carter, we talked about in the open. Stars on the road in Game 7 have to come to the forefront, and he's got to dominate. They dug themselves a hole in the first period. They got down by 10, and basically they played uphill. Bill, you talked about it in fits and spurts, and when you're on the road using that kind of energy, will you have enough to finish the game? And Vince Carter's got to lead them.
It is Sportsfeld Storytime. We are dialing it back to May 20th, 2001. It's Game 7. Raptors 76ers at the First Union Center in Philadelphia. Where we left off, the Raptors coming into the fourth quarter down 3, 66-69, thanks to some careless fouls at the other end and a bit of a brutal whistle against Charles Oakley, to be honest with you. He gets sort of screwed on the whistle. Antonio Davis, who we last saw exiting the bench with a shoulder injury, comes back to start the quarter. He makes back-to-back buckets, gets a block, picks up his 5th foul. He is probably, I would say, the best player on the floor through 3 quarters, would you say?
Yeah, I would say by a considerable margin. Like, AI's distributing well, but no one's shooting well. And no one's asserting their dominance, so to speak, quite like AD was at this point.
What's hard to believe is, like, Vince can't get the ball.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. They just can't get him the ball.
It's also crazy how, like, in the era of hero ball, like, just let him bring it up the floor.
Yes.
Like, there's no reason for Alvin Williams to be bringing it up the floor every time and then trying to find Vince.
And the commentary team brings that up as well, as how early into the shot clock Philadelphia gets the ball into AI's hands. I know he's a point guard, but as you said, in 2020, Vince would just be running the offense. You would just put the ball into his hands. Iverson, not shooting well, but he does get a career high in assists. VC and AI will combine to go 14 of 45 in this game. Oof. Brutal. 31%. The Raptors do come close to clawing back. They actually took the lead late in the third, but come into it with those fouls down. In the fourth quarter, it's all about the role players.
Aaron McKee knocks it too.
So you can't run off Aaron McKee. Vince Carter went to help on Iverson. Aaron McKee can knock that shot down. You've got to force Eric Snow to take the shot. That's a defensive lapse by Vince Carter.
McKee with 18. Philly back up by 4. So plenty of time. We've just played over 2 minutes here in the fourth.
I am screaming at this point to stop leaving McKee.
Aaron McKee, man.
Like, they leave McKee so many times.
Again, as we were sort of talking about last episode with Jermaine Jones, just like the Raptors weren't going to get buried by AI here.
He's the only guy who can shoot other than AI.
Your note here about how Mutombo, McKee, Jones, and Snow all had 10 plus points in the game, but all of them, other than Jones, or even close to Jones, have about half their points in the fourth.
Ridiculous.
Iverson only scored 2 points in the fourth.
It's so frustrating. And my other note, my final note on AD, are we sure Antonio Davis wasn't a star? Because he, once again, when he's in the game, he is driving things. He hits a huge bucket with about a minute and a half left to pull them within 4. They get a stop, and then they're down 4. Del Curry, by the way, closes this. He plays the final 9 minutes of this game And Bill Walton and I are both like, why the hell is Del Curry still in this game? And then with a minute left, he pulls up from 3, splash.
I mean, this happens a lot in any close elimination game in any sport. You can look to any one play and be like, oh, if that does this, this does that. But there's a play with about, I think, 40 seconds left in the game where the Raptors get a stop and then Vince just misses a shot. Like he just clangs iron. And it's one of those things like if that goes in, they're down 2, they get another stop. There's a lot more time left than there would be. Like it's just, if that one goes in,
Totally.
that is, other than obviously like the final shot, that's the one where I'm like, oh, if he had hit that one.
Totally. You go back through this game, there's some bad fouls that go to free throws. There's, as you said, in the first quarter, Mo Pete just like throws a dunk out of bounds. Oakley misses a layup with nobody around him. There's a lot of small things where when it's a 1-point game, you sort of can't help but think like a break here, a break there. Maybe Lenny Wilkins plays Mo Pete. Maybe Antonio Davis doesn't get hurt. He played like Anthony Davis, but maybe AD doesn't get hurt. There's a lot of stuff where like, goddamn. And then at this point, by the way, in my rewatch, even though I know how it ends, I know what happens, I am so nervous rewatching this. I can't even explain it.
It wasn't so much that I was nervous, but I found really odd knowing how it ends didn't this feel like the Raptors were going to win? Rewatching it,
100%. They had everything going their way.
Like they were down 4, but they get all the stops they need. The Sixers are not, for the last like minute and a half of the game, the Sixers aren't shooting well at all. Curry hits that pull-up 3. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, they're gonna win this game.
Del Curry, by the way, throws the inbound pass on this final play. It all sets up. It all sets up.
That's so stupid,
right? Well, why would you? Anyway. It all sets up for the storybook ending. Vince Carter for the win.
Curry has it. Carter trying to get free. Carter at the buzzer. No good. And the Sixers hold on and advance to the conference finals. Carter bursts over with that explosive quickness. The pump fake, the defender flies right by. Had time, had look squared away. You can't ask for more than that. And the celebration begins. The Toronto Raptors coming 1 shot short of a huge upset here in the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, it rims out. He overshoots it. It goes far rim. He pump fakes and gets himself open.
It's a good look.
It's a pretty good look.
It's a better look than my brain doesn't remember the pump fake working.
Yes.
My brain has it that he pumps and is still like has a hand in his face for the shot. But like, it's a good look.
And that was his shot. That high elbow jumper from the left side. He hits it a couple times in this game. That was Vince's shot. That was other than like driving and dunking, which he did not do in this game at any point. That was the shot I would wanted to have taken, other than maybe Antonio Davis. Like he was red hot.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there's no way they're running a play for the power forward with 2 seconds left.
Yeah, and I don't know that going at Mutombo is what you draw up coming out of a timeout.
Yeah.
Vincent Lamar Carter.
It is funny. The more we talk about it and the more we think about it, just thinking of the alternate, like, man, this one, like, talking, it still stings.
Totally.
Like, this one
100%.
still sucks ass.
100%. And it's like I said, it's a damn good look. He gets a really nice look at it. The pump fake works, and then he just puts a little too much gas on it. This was something that people do end up blaming graduation for, which is ridiculous, but
yeah,
he's playing the 48th of 48 minutes. You're tired at that point, no matter what flight you were on in the morning. I don't think he looked tired at any point in the game. Like, you're like, oh man, no. he didn't get enough sleep.
He was also like, he was flying to Durham.
Yeah.
Like to Philly. Like, it's not like he was going cross country.
Yes.
These are like 45-minute, hour-long flights.
Yes. And it's not like he was flying out of Toronto and flying into Toronto because he's in Philly, right?
Yeah.
It's not.
He's also not flying coach.
Yeah. Or commercial, I doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of odd synergy here with the 2019 Raptors, of course. Kawhi hitting the fucking shot. There's 3.6 seconds left when the Sixers foul to set up Vince's final shot. Kawhi got the ball in the exact same spot, which was crazy, with 4.2 seconds left. Location on the court, pretty similar. You got to admit.
Yeah. It was really weird. It's one of those, as someone who doesn't believe in like anything higher power wise, like it's weird how similar it is.
It's also crazy how long this moment sort of holds over the franchise, even though they get further in the playoffs than this. Like they get to the conference finals after this. Like they you know what I mean? The DeMar Kyle team is better than this in every way. They win more games. They go deeper. They get closer. But this moment just really sticks with our fan base until literally Kawhi exercises it.
Yeah, I mean, like I think we needed, if Kawhi had just hit, or if anyone had hit a different kind of buzzer beater, it wouldn't quite have exercised this moment quite like it did. Like even the title, in a way, like obviously title heals all wounds.
Totally.
But this, to your point, like this specific shot with everything behind it, with, you know, the myth of Vince going to his graduation, the first time they ever won a playoff series, this idea that they were a team on the rise. Like, to your point, this was Vince's best year of his career, and there was no indication at the time that it was about to all go south. Like, this was all like, I remember after this game, like obviously being heartbroken, being like, we'll be back.
Totally.
Like, whatever. There's no reason to think this is all about to implode on us for 15 years.
Yes, and they weren't an old enough team to think that this was going to follow them around. I'm with you. I was like, oh man, 2001, 2002, they're going to be just as good, if not better. Like, why wouldn't they?
Absolutely. And then I think it took the shot for us to sort of like, I think this shot lived in the hearts of Raptors fans, even in those DeMar Lowry teams where they lost to LeBron. Like, yeah, it was okay, we can't get past LeBron and like that's the roadblock. But like the notion of the Raptors being a cursed franchise really starts with this.
Totally.
Like, I think, and every misfortune, like they finally get the first overall pick and it's the Andrea Bargnani year, or they finally make a big free agent splash and it's Hito Turkoglu. Like every seemingly quote unquote cursed moment, that narrative of the Raptors being cursed begins as soon as that ball doesn't go in Philly.
It also kicks off, like, when you look back at it, a bunch of their playoff heartbreaks are buzzer beaters ring out. There's the floater against the Nets. There's the stupid pass the year before. I believe it's Calderon.
In 2006, yeah.
Yeah.
2007.
There's Valanciunas not being able to hit a putback. Like, these last-second shots.
And then the reverse. You have LeBron just killing them at the buzzer
no problem.
In Cleveland. Yeah.
And I think that's part of what makes Kawhi's shot so incredible was it's not just this shot. It's every buzzer beater the Raptors win and lose on. And that first bounce, I know we've talked about Kawhi shot a million times in our lives already, but like the first bounce on Kawhi's buzzer beater shouldn't go in.
No chance.
He hits front iron. It doesn't make any sense at all.
I remember, like, in the immediate aftermath of it, a lot of the tweets and narrative around the Kawhi shot was this shot doesn't go in for the Raptors.
Yes. 100%.
That was, it wasn't even like celebration of like, we're moving on. It was like, that doesn't happen for us. What's going on?
I think another big thing that struck me on this rewatch and watching it rim out for Vince is like, how do we feel today if Kawhi's shot does rim out? If it bounces front rim, bounces again, and bounces out, like, how do we feel about the 2020 team? How do we feel about the Kawhi experiment? How much worse would it be because all those narratives about the Raptors 100% still exist.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little different only because the Kawhi game was tied. So there was still a chance for like a legendary moment in overtime for him. But I think you're right in the idea that like if that shot doesn't go in, even if that shot doesn't go in and they still win that game, but it's like a typical NBA overtime, they win by like 6 points.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then that Bucks series, who knows how that went. But I think every championship team in every sport has those moments. And I know you and I have talked this a lot about the 2015 Jays, where it's like there were so many moments in that season where you look back, you're like, that should have been a championship because you had these moments to look back like there's that. I think this in Philly in 2001, I don't think this team wouldn't have won the championship.
No.
But in terms of the annals of the franchise and like where the franchise goes, this would have been a franchise defining moment because AI was already like the king at this point. Mm-hmm. And you have Vince on the rise. Vince hits this shot. They've been dueling all series. If he himself hits the winner and the Raptors move on, and the Raptors were a 5th seed here. They didn't win their division. It wasn't like a team that was favored to win anything. If Vince hits that shot, even if they lose to the Bucks in the conference finals, it's like there's this very like there's a track there where the legend of Vince grows. His connection with the Raptors probably deepens. Everything that happens the next season probably doesn't happen, or at least happens differently. And who knows? There's also just talking funny symmetry at the Bucks are in the next round again.
Of course, eh? I was looking at that too. That is sort of hilarious that it's the Bucks that's waiting for them. A totally different Bucks, obviously, but they did have Ray Allen, who was so sick. Ray Allen, one of the great underrated players of our time, I think.
Agreed. It's weird how like the championship, yes, heals all wounds, but when you go back and like talk about these games, it sucks.
Very winnable. It was a very winnable game.
Very winnable.
But yeah, I think the championship does help a little bit because you would still be looking at this and be saying, was this the high watermark? Did they honestly never get past this? Even though they get the conference finals, it was sort of just waiting to be killed by LeBron. It takes me back. It took me back to the first time of falling in love with the Raptors team and remembering watching the slam dunk competition that my dad had taped because I slept over at a friend's house the night before and didn't watch it live. And he was like, I'm not going to tell you who wins, but I'm going to tell you it was the best dunk competition in the history of dunk competitions. I'm like, okay. And like jumping around and screaming and how much fun it was when Vince was engaged and when Vince felt like being a star. He was as fun to watch as it came. And just how much it sucked, how much what happens next, and how much episode 4 of this series is going to suck.
Yeah, and I think to your point about Vince, like Toronto up to this point, obviously we've had many, many, many great players on many different teams, but I feel like to this point, we never had like the guy that everyone wanted. Mm-hmm. Even those like the Jays teams that won were great all around teams. But like, there's not a ton of like you can maybe make like Paul Molitor in '93 as an argument, but there's not really a lot of like capital T, capital G, the guys. Right. And like the Leafs had Sundin and like obviously had legends in like the '60s, but this was like, and it's also the NBA, and like having the guy in the NBA is the coolest thing to have in the world as a sports fan. And then to have Toronto finally gets the guy, and he's everything you ever imagined watching someone like this every day would be. Just like countless buzzer beaters, insane dunks, the dunk contest, king of the world. Then he misses this shot and everything that comes after. It's like, it really was like nothing we had seen before, I think is what made this so different.
And it doesn't really happen again until they get Kawhi. I sort of likened it to Maple Leafs fans. Before they got Austin Matthews, we talked ourselves into so many guys being much better than they were.
Jason Blake got like $45 million.
And then you see a real star, like the Raptors, we talked ourselves into those Lowry, DeMar teams, and they were very good. But until you saw Kawhi in the playoffs, you're like, oh, okay, like it is a different level. It is a different feeling. It's a different sort of approach to the game altogether. And this was our first taste of that, and it was fun. It was certainly fun to watch at the time. It's fun to rewatch knowing that they're the defending champions and they eventually climbed the mountain because they found a guy that could be what Vince was offensively as well as the best defensive player on the planet. So that closes out the game. And unfortunately, what happens next to this franchise gets a little bit worse every year until it is 100% off the rails. We are going to talk about that in episode 4 of Sportsfeld Storytime, the fallout from Game 7.